In the glittering yet treacherous world of Hollywood, where stars rise and fall on the whims of talent, power, and scandal, few names evoke as much reverence and controversy as Dustin Hoffman. A two-time Oscar winner, known for iconic roles in films like The Graduate, Rain Man, and Kramer vs. Kramer, Hoffman has long been celebrated as a chameleon of the screen, transforming into everyman heroes and complex anti-heroes with effortless charisma. But beneath the accolades lies a darker narrative, one woven with threads of harassment, boundary violations, and the silencing of women's voices in an industry that once thrived on such shadows. At the center of one of the most poignant tales of refusal and reckoning stands Catherine Rosetter, a Broadway actress whose dream collaboration with Hoffman on the 1984 revival of Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman devolved into a nightmare of abuse. Rosetter, now in her 70s, has vowed never to work with Hoffman again, her story a stark emblem of the Me Too movement's unearthing of long-buried traumas. This script delves deep into that saga, exploring the highs of artistic ambition, the lows of exploitation, and the enduring fight for accountability in Tinseltown. Through Rosetter's eyes and those of her fellow survivors, we uncover not just the why of her refusal, but the systemic rot that allowed it to fester for decades. What begins as a tale of starstruck awe ends in a resolute stand against a titan, reminding us that true power lies not in Oscars, but in the courage to say no more. Catherine Rosetter's journey into the heart of Broadway's elite was nothing short of a fairy tale turned fever dream. Born in 1950 in a modest corner of America, Rosetter grew up idolizing the stage, her imagination ignited by the flickering lights of community theaters and the crackle of old radio dramas. By her early 20s, she had clawed her way to New York City, the mecca of aspiring performers armed with nothing but a headshot, a resume thinner than a script's margins, and an unquenchable thirst for validation. The city was a beast, auditions that chewed up dreams and spat them out onto rain-slicked sidewalks, agents who promised the moon but delivered rejection slips. Rosetter pounded the pavement, her feet blistered from endless cattle calls, her spirit tested by the endless echo of next. Then, in 1983, lightning struck. She submitted her materials for a revival of Death of a Salesman, Arthur Miller's Pulitzer Prize-winning gut punch of a play about the American dream's cruel unraveling. The role? The woman, Willie Loman's shadowy mistress, a fleeting but pivotal character, a siren of regret in a man's crumbling world. It was a small part, but in the hands of director Jack O'Brien and producer Manny Eisenberg, it promised exposure on the Great White Way. And starring as Willie, none other than Dustin Hoffman, the boyish-faced virtuoso whose raw intensity had redefined acting for a generation. Rosetter's heart raced as she prepared her sides, memorizing lines that dripped with forbidden longing. "You didn't make me feel like this. You made me feel like a queen." Little did she know, those words would soon mirror her own perilous dance with illusion and betrayal. The audition room at the Broadhurst Theater hummed with nervous energy, a pressure cooker of talent and desperation. Rosetter arrived early, her palms slick with sweat, rehearsing her monologue in the dim hallway mirror. She was 33, far from an ingenue but hungry for her break, her one prior Broadway credit a distant memory in a chorus line. As she entered, the air thickened. There sat Hoffman, slouched in a director's chair, his sharp eyes scanning the room like a predator assessing prey. He was 46 at the peak of his powers, fresh off Tootsie's cross-dressing triumph and radiating that effortless cool that made audiences lean in. The reads began, a parade of hopefuls delivering their takes on the woman's sultry vulnerability. Rosetter watched from the wings, noting how Hoffman engaged each one, leaning forward, chuckling at flubs, his presence magnetic. When her turn came, the room fell silent. She stepped into the space, the script trembling slightly in her hands, and locked eyes with him. Attention must be finally paid to such a person," she intoned, channeling the ghost of Linda Loman's plea. Hoffman's gaze intensified, a nod here, a murmured again there. But as the session dragged, something shifted. The other actresses filed out, leaving her alone under the fluorescent glare. Whispers flew between Hoffman, O'Brien, and Eisenberg, arguments over her youth, her look. "She's too green," one voice hissed. Then the improbable. "Make her stuff her dress with towels. Let's see the curves." Mortified but desperate, Rosetter complied, patting her costume like a makeshift hourglass, feeling the weight of their scrutiny like chains. Minutes later, the offer came. The role was hers, contingent on gaining 12 pounds to fill out the part. Elation washed over her. Broadway. With Hoffman, he whisked her to his Upper West Side brownstone for a celebratory dinner, introducing her to his wife, Ann Byrne, and phoning her mother with boyish glee. "Your daughter's going to be a star." In that moment, Rosetter believed it. The dream was real. Hoffman, her benevolent godfather in a godless industry. Rehearsals commenced in a whirlwind of creativity and chaos. the majestic theater's empty stage, a canvas for Miller's tragedy. Hoffman was a force method to his marrow, immersing in Willie's despair with physicality that bordered on mania. He'd pace for hours, muttering lines, his voice cracking with feigned senility, demanding the cast match his fervor. Rosetta, as the woman, had scant scenes. A clandestine hotel rendezvous with Willie, all hushed confessions and stolen touches. But proximity bred intensity. Hoffman insisted on chemistry building, pulling her aside for private run-throughs, his hands lingering a beat too long on her waist as they blocked the embrace. "Feel the desperation," he'd whisper, his breath hot against her ear, eyes gleaming with something beyond rehearsal. She brushed it off. Star egos, she thought, the price of progress. The company buzzed with excitement. Kate Reed as Linda brought maternal steel. John Malkovich as Biff, a brooding fire that electrified previews. Opening night loomed October 1984. Tickets scalped for triple face value. Rosetta's costumes, silk slips and garters, were tailored to accentuate, per Hoffman's notes, "She needs to tempt, to haunt. Weight gain be damned." She starved through tech week, nerves knotting her stomach. The first performance was electric, applause thundering like Judgment Day. Hoffman took his bows with humble grace, but backstage, as champagne flowed, his arm snaked around her shoulders, fingers tracing her collarbone. "You were perfect, kid," he slurred. The kid, a diminutive that stuck like burrs. She smiled, chalking it to adrenaline, unaware the real performance was just beginning. As the run settled into its grueling 8 shows-a-week rhythm, the cracks in Hoffman's facade widened into chasms. The woman's scene, a mere 5 minutes in Act 1, became Rosetta's personal gauntlet. Each night before curtain, Hoffman would summon her to his dressing room under the guise of warm-ups. The space was a shrine to his ego. Posters of Midnight Cowboy, half-empty scotch bottles, a haze of cigarette smoke. "Let's run it," he'd say, dimming the lights, the door clicking shut. What followed were not lines, but invasions, his hands roaming her thighs as she perched on the makeup table, probing under her robe with clinical curiosity. "Relax, it's acting," he'd coo, dismissing her flinches as stage fright. One evening in Chicago, during a road stint, it escalated, his palm sliding up her slip mid-rehearsal, fingers brushing intimate territory while she scanned for cues, heart hammering. She batted him away, whispering, "Please. Dustin, please, not now." He laughed it off, a low rumble. "You're too tense, Catherine. Let Willie in." The isolation was suffocating. The cast revered him. Producers courted him, and she, the novice, feared rocking the boat. Whispers of his eccentricities circulated, how he'd berate understudies, demand script changes at whim. But no one spoke of the touches, the leers that left bruises on the soul. The abuse wasn't merely physical, it was a siege on her psyche, eroding the joy of her breakthrough with calculated cruelty. Hoffman wielded his stardom like a weapon, alternating charm and contempt to keep her off balance. One matinee after a flawless take, he cornered her in the wings. "You call that seduction? My grandmother could have done better." Tears stung her eyes, but she bit them back, reciting mantras of professionalism. Evenings brought worse. Post-show debriefs in his hotel suite, where Scotch loosened his tongue and hands. He'd regale her with tales of betting co-stars, his voice laced with conquest. Meryl, oh, she fought it, but everyone bends eventually. Rosetta, married and devoutly Catholic, recoiled inwardly, her faith a fragile anchor in the storm. Yet she endured, rationalizing, "This is the price. Broadway demands sacrifice." The run toured Boston, D.C., L.A., each city a fresh hell of proximity. In L.A., at a glitzy after-party, he groped her breast openly, his grip iron as flashbulbs popped. She forced a smile for the lens, the photo later surfacing in trades, her grin strained, his hand vanishing just in time. He was a magician with that, she'd later recount, the memory a bitter pill. Colleagues noticed her withdrawal, Malkovich's concerned glances, Reed's maternal hugs, but silence prevailed. Hoffman's power was absolute. He was the revival's draw, the box office savior. To accuse him? Career suicide for a woman already teetering on the edge. Beyond the stage, Hoffman's orbit pulled Rosetta into a vortex of manipulation that blurred lines between mentor and molester. He positioned himself as her champion, introducing her to agents, co-signing her headshots with scribbled praise. Star in the making, DH. But each favor came laced with expectation. A midnight call for company, a drive to the airport where his knee pressed against hers, insistent. She confided in her husband, a struggling actor back home, his rage impotent across state lines. "Leave the show," he urged. But pride and the resume line opposite Dustin Hoffman chained her. The 1985 CBS telecast, directed by Alex Siegel, amplified the torment. Cameras rolled on their intimate scene, Hoffman's ad-libs turning playful nuzzles into outright fondling. his erection evident against her hip. "Cut," cries masked her discomfort. But in editing bays, producers chuckled. Dustin's magic keeps it real. Rosetta seethed, her dignity diced into sound bites. The special heir to Emmy's buzz, Hoffman nominated, she a footnote. Yet in quiet moments, doubt gnawed. Was I complicit? Did I invite this? Gaslighting was his art. He'd feign innocence. "You misread, sweetheart," leaving her questioning her sanity. The run closed after 313 performances. A triumph on paper, but for Rosetta, a scar etched in marquee lights. Years passed. The incident buried under the avalanche of Rosetta's career. A mix of TV guest spots, regional theater, voice work that paid the bills but never the dream. She married, divorced, rebuilt in Florida, teaching acting to wide-eyed students, her Broadway war stories sanitized for inspiration. Hoffman, he soared, Rain Man's autistic savant netting another Oscar, Hook's paternal warmth charming families, Wag the Dog's cynicism biting Washington. Whispers followed him though. Meryl Streep's icy recount of an unscripted slap on Kramer vs. Kramer, Anagram Hunter's groping allegations from the 85 Salesman TV set, Corey Thomas's hotel proposition at 16. In 2017, as Harvey Weinstein's empire crumbled, the dam broke. Hunter's Hollywood Reporter essay lit the fuse, detailing Hoffman's lewd foot massages and pussy catcalls. Rosetta watched from afar, her own silence cracking. If not now, when? She thought, the Me Too clarion call echoing her suppressed screams. On December 8, 2017, she penned her guest column for the same outlet. A horrific, demoralizing, and abusive experience. The words poured out. The dressing room violations. The Chicago thigh grab, the photo op assault. He eroded my self-confidence and my dignity, she wrote, echoing Hunter's pain. Hoffman's response? A mealy-mouthed statement. I feel terrible that anything I might have done contributed to her discomfort. No apology, just deflection. His team lawyering up against recollections. The column detonated. Media frenzy engulfing Rosetta's quiet life. CNN panels dissected it. Variety timelines mapped Hoffman's accusers. 4 by then, each a thread in a tapestry of predation. Streep, ever the diplomat, told The Hollywood Reporter, it was wrong. But all is forgiven, not for Rosetta. Interviews followed, NPR's probing questions, Rolling Stone's empathetic ear, where she laid bare the refusal. I would never work with him again. Never. The trust is shattered. Why? The betrayal cut deepest not in the acts, but the aftermath's indifference. Hoffman, at 80, retreated to voice gigs, Kung Fu Panda, and Megalopolis cameos, his legacy unscathed save for footnotes. Rosetta, vindication mingled with vertigo. Trolls branded her a liar, old wounds reopened. Yet in support groups, survivor circles, she found sisters, Hunter's hugs at events, Thomas's shared tears. The refusal became her manifesto, a boundary drawn in indelible ink. It's not revenge, she clarified on PBS. It's reclamation. I won't let his shadow eclipse my light. Zooming out, Rosetta's stand illuminates Hollywood's rotten core, a machine oiled by male entitlement and female forbearance. The 80s were a golden age for Hoffman, postgraduate wunderkind to establishment king. But for women like Rosetta, it was the era of the casting couch's velvet glove. Miller's salesman, ironically, preached vigilance against illusion. Willie's delusions mirror Hoffman's, a man blind to his wreckage. The revival grossed millions, but at what cost? Rosetta's 12-pound mandate? A microaggression in a macro of objectification. Her story parallels broader reckonings. Streep's slap on Kramer set where Hoffman ignored safe word boundaries, foreshadowing salesman's escalations. Hunter, 17 on that TV shoot, endured similar jokes. Hoffman pinching her backside, dubbing her Little Miss Breastplate. Thomas, a teen family friend, rebuffed his hotel lures. Patterns emerge. The star's isolation tactics, the feigned playfulness masking predation, the industry's hush money and NDAs and nods. For Me Too didn't invent these sins. It excavated them, forcing audits of icons from Cosby to Spacey. Hoffman's denials, I don't recall, reek of privilege, a luxury Rosetta never had. In the script of her life, Rosetta emerges not as victim, but victor, the woman who demands her own attention. Post-column, she channeled fury into advocacy, founding workshops for intimacy coordinators, those post-Weinstein guardians ensuring safe sets. No more method excuses, she lectures, her voice steady as steel. Students flock, inspired by her resilience. If Catherine survived Hoffman, I can face my fears. Personally, she thrives. Grandkids recitals. A memoir in the works titled The Mistress Monologue. Sales projected to rival Streep's The Devil Wears Prada tell-alls. Hoffman, at 87 in 2025, he's a ghost. Sporadic red carpets, Panda Ford trailers ignoring scandals. No public mea culpa, no industry blacklist, just faded glory. Rosetta's refusal stings sharper for its specificity. Not boycott, but personal firewall. I'd share a stage with ghosts before him, she quips in a 2024 Vulture profile, laughter a balm. Her why, simple, profound self-preservation. The abuse stole years, therapy bills, lost auditions from shaken confidence, but not her essence. In refusing Hoffman, she reclaims agency, a Loman-like salesman's pitch for her worth. Yet the tale lingers, unanswered questions haunting like stage fog. Did producers know? Azenberg shrugs. O'Brien's silences suggest complicity, the boys' club code. Malkovich, a witness, later praised Rosetta's guts in NYT op-eds, but where was allyship then? The telecast's crew, laughs over realism now curdle into lawsuits fodder. Hoffman's family, 6 kids, wife Lisa Gottsiegen since 80, maintains opacity, Karina's adopted silence a familial echo. Broader ripples. Broadway's Me Too task forces, mandatory reporting but enforcement lags. Rosetta's column spurred investigations. SAG-AFTRA probes, though Hoffman's tenure shields him. In 2025, as AI scripts rewrite classics, her human truth endures, a cautionary reel. Why refuse? Because forgiveness isn't obligation. It's choice. Streep forgave for peace. Rosetta withholds for justice, her boundary a beacon for the next generation.